Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. Hey everybody, I'm here with Brian May today. Brian, it's been almost 2 months, I think, since we talked. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's a lot of things that have happened in our county since we last spoke. How have you been?
Excellent. Excellent. It's good to see you again. Sorry, it's been 2 months.
You might be a little busy. It's quite okay. I think
Yeah,
people can
it's
understand.
busy times.
So since we spoke last, what would you say is, I know we go over a brief list, but what would you think the people are watching the beginning of this? What's the most important thing that's been going on that we should talk about?
Well, I think the most important thing is your intro. That is really, really cool. I like that. I like that. It boosts our town and our village very, very well. It's our towns. Let me pluralize that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This just
Thank
keeps
you.
getting better, Shelley. I'm excited to be here. We'll talk about it, but certainly, money going back into the economy is changing. Government is changing the way people live. It's affecting, how we govern and the issues that we're dealing with at the legislature. For the good, finally, and so I'd say that's the underlying or overarching theme of all of it. Money makes the world go round, and over the last 14, 15 months, things have been really, really tough. And again, when I get to the financial health of the county, I'll talk about the impact and how things are better and what our intended approach is to very responsibly get the economy going again, get some work done that wasn't done last year, try to get more work done this year than ever before, just to catch up and take advantage of some of the financial opportunities we have through federal government, and even the state has been very, very helpful in our financial predicament this year as well.
Well, we have a little bit of that back feed again, but that's okay. When we talked 2 months ago, the big topic was the police reform.
That's right.
Is that pretty much wrapped up, or how's that going?
Okay. So that was a mandated process every municipality with a police force needed to undertake. Onondaga County being, required to do so as well with our sheriff's department. And then, of course, all the agencies within the county could model after our plan, come up with their own or whatever. Most, I think, used our plan as a basis or bought in fully to the plan that we created. And that's what they submitted to the state. I think that I may have mentioned to you before, I think, there were a lot of headlines surrounding body-worn cameras. And that being kind of an overarching, it was a kind of a lowest common denominator among many. The police reform plan addressed, mental health issues, community policing, diversity training, all that stuff. But one of the things that, and there was no disagreement, it universally passed. It was a very good process, and I didn't think anyone was dissatisfied with the result. And again, the consistent theme, if you pay attention to the national news, local news, whatever, body-worn cameras are a foregone conclusion on police officers. Kind of a no-brainer. So, my caucus, I'm going to back up. After the plan was published, there was an article by the Syracuse newspapers that called out Sheriff Conway for not having body-worn cameras already. Two things on that. One, we just passed the plan. Two, look at the record, look at the sheriff's department record. They do a really good job. They do not have, thank goodness, the problems that we've seen elsewhere in the country. And honestly, the same could be said for the Syracuse Police Department. They do a really, really good job. And if you talk to someone from the police, they'll throw at you statistics that would blow you away. 99.9% repeating police calls in the millions and millions in the course of a year go forth without incident. But then there are incidents, and those incidents are intolerable, right, when they happen. But body-worn cameras protect citizens. They protect the police officers. They aid and expedite the justice system. It's all good if we implement them. In trying to implement them in the past, we have been prohibited by cost being one of the things. Okay, need as portrayed to the legislature, not quite getting it over the hump as to the real cost. And the cost of body-worn cameras, it's kind of like the Gillette razor thing way back when. Give away the razor to sell the blades. Well, they give away the cameras to sell the storage, to sell the administration, to sell the system. And it's incredibly expensive to do. But again, we passed the police reform plan. Body-worn cameras, that's the deal, right? We got to do it. So we're going to do it next budget or whatever. The newspapers kind of went after the sheriff on the fact that they didn't have them. The sheriff countered that and maybe ruffled a few feathers within county government along the way at the very top. And as a result, we had and witnessed, all of us in the public, a kind of news conference or media war debate, if you will, on how to get body-worn cameras done. So Gene said we'll do them when, Sheriff Conway said we'll do them when we do everything else we need to do in the sheriff's department. And the county executive came out and said, well, we know we need to do the cameras. Let's do them now. We're going to appropriate some reserves and fund balance and just get it done. Start the process, because the process takes time. You got to spec out the need. You have to implement. You have to train. You have to figure out how you're going to store and then use that evidence within our judicial system in the process. Massive undertaking. Let's start it now. What's the difference? Okay, so if that's an issue, let's not make it an issue. No more obstacles. Legislative leadership basically agreed. Why not just go forward? So we did. And to my surprise, when this very good issue went to the floor, it was met with a lot of consternation and yet more headlines, crazy headlines, just exploiting the fact that there was a lot of debate on the how. Some of the debate got very personal. I'm not going to get into that in this venue. Some of the debate got into issues that far transcended whether or not police officers should wear body-worn cameras. The fact of the matter is, these days, governance in general gets distracted by issues that don't necessarily have to do with the issue that you're dealing with. So at the end of the day, Shelley, it passed, and we're moving forward with body-worn cameras on the sheriff's police unit or division. The sheriff also has a custody division, a civil division that goes out and serves warrants and things like that. It's kind of a dangerous job at times, depending on the nature of the warrant and the issue being dealt with. And there's also, some other areas. So the sheriff still wants broader control. But again, from a legislative perspective, my caucus and I basically said, well, look, we know we have to do the police. We can find the money to do the police. Let's get those on the road, in our cars, everywhere they need to be, so that we can at least check that box with the plan that we committed to. And that's what we did, and that's what we're doing. And news headlines notwithstanding, that's about as simple as it gets. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be really good for the community to have that level of protection for our citizens, our officers, who I'm telling you, 99.9% repeating, do a fantastic job with their duties and responsibilities. But I'll be the first to say, there are problems along the way, and those cameras will help everybody involved, every stakeholder in the issue. So I'm glad we're where we're at with it. It was a surprisingly tough legislative issue, but we got it done, and we're on to bigger and better things.
Well, I think of when you say you go tough, what it actually does is it makes you go deeper into the issue. Does that make sense? And more sides, more discussion, more involvement probably from the community and everybody involved. So even though it makes it tougher, it's probably not the worst thing when something gets tougher and then gets resolved. It's kind of how I look at it from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
It makes you
as long as I'm sorry, as long as we keep the personal stuff out of it,
Oh,
and we're civil, and um, always keep at the forefront our purpose for doing the job that we do outside of our, regular business and daily lives. So
well, yeah, but
that's
that is tough, especially, we find that in politics a lot, doesn't always happen.
too
Is there
much
a time
lately.
frame for when they think that you can check that box? Any type of date or?
Well, we're out to bid. We have a budget figure pretty much approved. And the public bidding process in government takes a little bit of time. At the end of the day, it's important to point out that, uh, you've got the Onondaga County Legislature, which is a co-equal branch to the executive's position in the administration. We do policy, fiscal, and organizational or management policy. County executive runs the business every day. The sheriff of Onondaga County is independently elected and runs that operation. That operation is his prerogative. Beyond the policy stuff that we do, we do not, and I make it a point as majority leader of the ledge, we do not get into how they do policing. We're not police officers. But how he runs his business and the speed at which he implements and the way he does is really on up to him, and for very good reason. He's the top cop. He's the one who knows what it's going to take to roll these things out appropriately, and all the systems need to be in place. All the support needs to be in place. It's a process, but I'm glad we started it despite the heartache and headaches, because it's just a good thing to do at the end of the day, particularly in these times.
Well, and speaking of these times, where are we at financially with all the COVID impact and whatnot?
Yeah, thank you. That's a so last month at the legislature, we received. There's been a lot of talk about money in the last 15, 16 months. Over the course of 2020, we made a lot of and we've talked about it before, tough decisions as far as pulling back funding on certain programs, services, and things like that. Not the things that impact people, but how we run county government day to day was really where the focus was. And then in other areas, we had to do without, because the external funding to support those services just wasn't there. And what's worse is the message from New York State was very clear that we were going to lose $20 million in 2020 that we anticipated and budgeted for. And also, we were going to lose 2020 in budgeted funding in 21. On top of that, we lost all kinds of sales tax revenue last year, room occupancy tax, which drives the tourism, economic development activity in our community. That dried up entirely because the hotels were pretty much shut down. So, we went from all of this bad news and, making very difficult decisions with respect to 21 budget. Going forward, the legislature did a really nice job keeping county government, as did the county executive, keeping county government intact from a service standpoint. The people who needed help got the help they needed, period. Okay. The people, those services were protected, period. Veterans, for example, took a lot of hits in the budgeting process. Throughout the budgeting process, we're able to restore a lot of those things. I mentioned that just because it was a recent discussion in the past week. That's the type of stuff that we have to keep intact. We've got a whole new contingent of veterans out there that need tons of help. And here we are going into Memorial Day weekend. I guess that's appropriate too. It was a fight to keep all of this stuff going, keep it all together, fund all of the communities, our counties, COVID related work between testing, vaccination, PPE, getting food to people who needed them. Half the county workforce was repurposed for all of that. So imagine our pleasant surprise at the end of 2020 when the state said, before we close the 2020 books, which is later is early in 2021, looks like we're going to be able to give you that 20 million for 2020 after all. Holy smokes, that's awesome. Okay. And then looking into 2021, the state said, looks like we're going to be able to give you the money that we thought we couldn't give you in 21. Now budgets are already set. So all of a sudden we're able to shore up 2020 part of it. And then we're able to restore some of 2021 that we weren't able to. So just to give you a couple of highlights, we're our road plan for infrastructure, for example, is double what it normally is in 2021. That meant we needed to approve the work that's going to be done as soon as possible so we could get on the list for asphalt and materials and things like that. We also changed our hiring practices in our highway department, so we could have more people in the queue, if you will, for positions needed to get all this work done. So that's a good thing for our community. That's a good thing for the towns and villages we serve. It's a good thing for, as we do the sewer work and things like that, because it's all part of it. We're armed and ready to get a lot of work done and move a lot of projects forward. So one of the tough things that we did last year, I personally opposed it. It was the worst, most miserable fight of my life, that home energy tax that was put in place that the legislature approved. We were able to rescind that as soon as we got word on this state money coming through. So as soon as we could get it to the floor of the legislature to rescind that tax, we did it. And as someone who opposed it and voted against it to begin with, it was as bad as the day was that we passed it, that was a pretty good day to be able to do it, because I think, as I told you, we were facing a very serious crisis, and the people that voted for it felt it was the right thing to do. The people who voted against it felt there was a different way to accomplish the same thing. But in the end, we all came together to get that thing off the books and make it go away. And that's the result is what matters. So I was really glad for that. So the picture the financial picture is good, and that kind of segues to the other pennies from heaven, which is stimulus money. The federal stimulus money the county is receiving. We've been kind of ahead of the curve in anticipation of it. The money is very, very limited as to what you can do with it. You really want to be putting people to work. You really want to be need to be stimulating the economy to have access to those dollars. And so the legislature, its leadership, and of course the county executive worked together to come up with a very ambitious list of things that we think, because we're not positive yet, everybody's moving so fast here, it's unbelievable, are eligible for this federal stimulus money. So we're really focused on infrastructure first and foremost. We're focused on our economic infrastructure secondly. We're focused on services that can kind of shore up on a one-time basis. It's very important from a financial standpoint to spend found money on a one-shot basis, because if you don't, you risk the structural operating integrity of I say business because I'm a business guy, but the business of county government. So you don't want that money to change the way we do business, because if you do, the sustainability going forward could be jeopardized. So it's all one-shot type stuff that's going to permanently make us better. Okay, I think the marquee item advanced by the county executive that I happen to support is an outdoor sports complex in the northern part of the county that near where 81 and the Thruway intersect. Land that no one will ever use for anything, but it's a perfect use for this. Soccer, lacrosse, that kind of stuff, but big time national type tournaments could be hosted with this kind of facility. Big expense, Shelley, but I know growing up with raising four kids who were all athletes and some still are, I spent my fair share of time and a whole lot of money taking my kids, like my soccer playing daughter, to Vegas to play soccer in a very special league, college showcase kind of environment. And there's a whole contingent of people continuously out there doing these kinds of things for baseball, soccer, lacrosse, name it. It's for girls and boys. It's a mega market. It's a mega industry. That investment will pay dividends, particularly when you look at the strong possibility of 81 no longer running through Syracuse, New York. That's going to have a devastating effect on commutation, commerce, and hospitality, things like that. It's going to, the impacts are going to be very strong in that area when and if 81 changes to a grid kind of format. If it only goes in that direction, not a foregone conclusion, but certainly the handwriting's been on the wall, and a lot of us are very concerned about the impact, because businesses, neighborhoods, lives are built around that thoroughfare. Public safety, my goodness, I worry so much about, the ability of for an ambulance to get from, I don't know, Central Square to Upstate Medical Center quickly. Okay, things like that, that we just, law enforcement, name it. There's just a lot of big question marks, and I don't know if any of those things apparently don't hold enough weight to change the trajectory of that situation. But this project can at least maybe address on some level the economic impact of 81, at least in that area, because it will be literally chopped right off from immediate quick access to Syracuse, New York. I know there's some great reasons why moving 81 is important to some folks. Nobody's even arguing that. The argument really centers on, and I know this isn't about 81, the argument sort of centers on bringing the community together and the ways in which it can be done.
Right.
So this project is a $25 million proposed project with the stimulus money, 12 athletic fields in two very close locations, one kind of north or south Geddes area, the other kind of paralleling Buckley Road, but way in back of the businesses and homes that are there. Kind of no man's land that runs, strip of no man's land that runs toward the direction of Destiny from 7 North Street. Anyways, it's a very exciting project, and it could just do wonders for this economy from a restaurant standpoint, small business standpoint, athletics, recreation, which I'm a big fan of. This is a project that's going to have an economic return on investment to beat the band, and we'll be able to start doing things as early as outdoors as early as March with a facility like this. So like the stadium, Met Stadium, if you haven't been there yet, county put $25 million into that. It is an unbelievably nice place now. This is going to be a nice facility, and the kind of scenario where, we have made a business decision, if you will, not to be in the business of baseball. We're in the business of owning that facility on behalf of taxpayers, and we bring in an operator that knows what the heck they're doing.
Right.
That's the plan at this point. Nothing's in stone, but that's, you don't want to get out of your wheelhouse or out of your lane. You want to do what you're good at. You're in business. You understand that. Do what you're good at and bring experts in to do the other stuff. Don't get greedy with profits and things like that. The profits come to our taxpayers when people are spending money in restaurants, stores, and things, and creating sales tax and lowering our property tax bills.
Yeah.
So, and then there's lots of projects related to services, assistance to local municipalities, and so on and so forth. It's $89 million, $86 million. It's a lot of money. I think I may have mentioned this before, maybe I didn't, but I mean, the city's getting $126 million, and Onondaga County shouldered 89, or shouldered all the costs of COVID. And, we're going to not struggle. We've got time. We actually had to assign people to the task of managing this money for us, people within our own workforce. It's going to be very exciting. It's there's some good stuff that's going to happen for this community, all one shot, improve our infrastructure, economic, physical, and otherwise. I'm excited. I think it's a great story to tell on the other side. Personally, being a little more of a conservative guy, I wish the government wasn't printing so much darn money. But
That's what I was thinking.
well,
I'll be honest.
That's my very firm opinion. But I don't get political here. I just wish, from an economic standpoint, we weren't creating so much national debt. It worries me a little. But anyways, it's out there. We're going to do the right things with it. We're way ahead of other counties in terms of planning and ideas at this point. And we have some good stuff in the hopper. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, nice. And I'm an sports-minded person. So I know even if you're not a sports-minded person, anything that brings people in to use our local restaurants I traveled a little bit, not as much as some of my friends, but certainly, you stay in a hotel, you eat the restaurants that are around that hotel, different areas. So
for sure.
And then hopefully, bring some life back to Destiny. I don't know if you've been to Destiny lately. There's some vacant places that weren't vacant before COVID. So
I'm not much of a shopper. It's a commitment to go out and get a quart of milk these days, which I love. But I don't shop much. But I read the stories, and I was there not too long ago, and it's of concern. And we could be cutting Destiny off with 81. That could be insult to injury. I don't know. I worry about a lot of things for us, and you try to do what you can. But yeah, you're right, Shelley. It's most definitely of concern.
Yeah. Well, I have teenage daughters, so anything that happens at the mall, I'm usually aware of, either because they tell me directly or because I'm not a shopper. I like the MLS. For anybody that knows me knows I'm an MLS shopper, not a Destiny shopper, but I have teenage girls. So that was a little bit depressing. Can we go to something more positive you were talking about, as far as there's a new local law or something that has to do?
Oh, yeah. So my phone and my email have been burning up the past month and a half or so. You're the first person I'm telling this, because it's not even public knowledge. I am sponsoring Onondaga County's opt-in to New York's youth hunting program. I'm thrilled to see this happen. My youngest is past these ages, but raising 4 kids, we're an outdoor sports family. We love fishing and hunting and just being outside. This law will allow 12 and 13-year-olds to hunt in New York State under incredibly stringent requirements. Kids won't be climbing trees with weapons. They won't be unsupervised. They will be highly trained. They will be supervised by highly trained people. I really like the law that they've put in place to allow us to try this pilot. New York is one of 1 or 2, don't hold me to that fact, but I think it's 1 or 2 states in the country that do not allow youth at that age to hunt deer specifically. And for us, it's not about hunting deer. It's about something we do together. Last year, my family and my kids and I, spent more time fishing than ever in history. 1, because they couldn't play baseball or soccer or whatever it is they do. 2, it was the only thing we could do that was socially responsible under the restrictions that we were in. Couldn't go to the gym, couldn't go, restaurants, have fun together. So we were fishing, and we did a lot of hunting together. It's a great family pastime. It's a great family heritage. It's American heritage. And I'm just glad New York is doing it and giving us the opportunity to opt in to this pilot program. And that'll be very highly accepted statewide. I don't anticipate very many opt-outs for this program.
When you say you're sponsoring, what does that mean?
Okay, so anything that goes to the floor, anything that enters the legislative process must have a sponsor, a primary sponsor. That's the legislator that owns that piece of legislation. And frankly, I at least tell my teammates this: if you're sponsoring something, it's on you to get it passed. It's not on anyone else. You own this. You need to get it passed. So the sponsor basically shepherds resolution, local law through the legislative process. That means, at the beginning, dealing with county legal department, talking with our staff, uh, talking with the chairman of the legislature who presides over the legislative process, the agendas that are set forth within subcommittees, and then ultimately Ways and Means, and then the legislature, general legislature itself. That person owns the legislation all the way through. I've already got a few co-sponsors to help. It just so happens they're the other outdoorsmen that are on the legislature. But again, it's the type of, I rarely get an overwhelming number of phone calls on and emails on issues. This was a pretty steady from people right in Beeville. I mean, just lots and lots of folks, people I don't know, people I do know. Hey, what are you doing with this thing? Get off your butt and get it done, Baldy. We gotta get this thing done for our kids. I want to hunt with my kids this fall, and I'm going to do my best to see that happens. This isn't about hunting deer for me only. It's about, family traditions and heritage and doing what every other state in the country has been doing for a long time. Some of them are doing it, Shelley, 6-year-olds in some places can
Wow.
we could debate that another day. But 12 and 13-year-olds are quite ready to be out there. My kids were out there with me without weapons at that point, just going with me. But that's about the time I stopped harvesting deer, I might add to the conversation as well. They're very loud. They talk a lot.
So it definitely was about the family and not the hunting at that point, right?
It's about all of it. You want to keep, you've seen that we've seen, hunting decline in the state, outdoor sports decline in the state. COVID was a funny year. 2020 was a funny year. So licenses picked up because there weren't many other things to do. You could safely do that with the people you live with, and people you deal with on a regular basis. So, so I'm excited about that. It's just, I think it's nice to expand our tradition and keep it going.
Nice. I'm not a hunter, but I know people that are, and it really is about the camaraderie of who they're doing it with usually. So
yeah. It's there's so much more to it. We could do a show on that, and I would probably cry, and I would probably tell you all kinds of stories that I shouldn't be telling folks in public, but about myself and my friends and family. But it's just you look at all the other things that distract people in life these days.
Yeah.
And you look at an opportunity to be outdoors and enjoy it and be together with people you want to be with. It's just fun, it's enjoyable. And again, I'll have my kids doing that over video games or watching TV any day of the week. And honestly, because I brought them up in that they prefer that stuff. It's a way of life.
Yeah. And you're always going to have people, they do something different, but it's hard when you want to do something with your kids and you can't do it and you see it happening other places, whether it is hunting or, other things that you do. But,
Absolutely.
So I believe there was one more thing you wanted to talk about before we wrapped up, if I'm allowed to talk.
Just a little, we also just finished, and I can't really talk specifically about it, but I can say that I'm really, really happy that we're going to have that we're in all likelihood going to approve a really innovative and nice community development project for the Van Buren side of the village that will lend itself to public safety, quality of life, and things like that. It's anytime we can bring money back to the area we serve, it's a wonderful thing. And this is I think the number was $50,000 to seed a really nice little project for the village. We try to do something every year, and this project, my hat's off to the mayor and for coming up with a good idea with his team, and glad it's something we're going to be able to do. Now, it hasn't been fully approved yet, but it was approved by the Community Development Steering Committee, which I sit on. It was approved by the Legislature's Ways and Means Committee, which I'm vice chair of, and it's going to go to the floor. And it was unanimous all the way through, so it'll be unanimous on the floor if it kills me. So I think I sponsored it too, so I have to make sure.
When will you know that?
Tuesday.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I talked to the mayor. Now we're every other Wednesday. We were every Wednesday for a long time. We're every other. So by the time I talk to him again, maybe he can give us the details of it.
Yeah.
Or I'll prep.
It's also nice. It's a nice little boost for all three entities. Well, four, but certainly Baldwinsville, which is the context of this process that we're in right here. I'm going to call it a show. It's a show, right?
Sure. We'll call whatever you want, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks. This great show with a great intro. We just approved in our Ways and Means Committee mortgage tax apportionments that are record high. One of the things that Onondaga County does that most other counties don't do is share mortgage tax with the local municipalities. Okay. So if someone pays mortgage tax on a new home or a refi or whatever, the money doesn't go entirely to the county. Significant amounts of money go to towns and or villages based on the apportionment of tax base in those areas. So, there was a while back, people were complaining about sales tax and sharing of sales tax. That's a county sales tax. Mortgage apportionment is something that we have customarily always shared. The money is substantial, Shelley. I'm talking, for the towns, can be over 200 to 300,000 when it's distributed twice a year. So, because of the home market being what it is, thanks to people like you in the business, it was a record high. And the last part of the part that we're paying out on now, and it's up 34% so the towns and the village are going to get a nice additional chunk of money from Onondaga County because we do this unique thing of sharing mortgage apportionment. And I can assure you that their budgeted expectation is a lot smaller than what they're really going to get as a result of, the market being as hot as it's been. And that's where a lot of folks, extra money, stimulus money, whatever, has been used to finance, refinance their homes or buy, as you know.
Yeah.
Amongst very limited housing stock availability. Most of the action has been on the refi side, but it's generating revenue nonetheless.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's actually interesting. That obviously I know there is mortgage tax. I see it as part of the closing and the transactions. It's in our contract, but I didn't know some of it came back to the town that hosts the property. So that's
and the village. So it's really it's a substantial amount of cash that goes to the towns and village.
I always learn something from you every time we talk. Usually it has to do with, what's going on in the county, but really anybody that's watching this, obviously my passion is real estate and I pick up something. So whether it's sports, whether it's, some type of business, the information that you share, it's definitely appreciated on my end. And I'm sure other people do as well. So
my pleasure. I hope we can do it more often, but sometimes that's a challenge. But I'm glad we do it when we do it. It's fantastic. Yeah. And it's great for me to be able to talk with you and talk to anybody that's listening. My name, my number is listed right on our website at the legislature. It's my personal information, so anybody can reach me anytime to talk about anything they want. And believe me, people do. And I encourage people not to hesitate if something's on their mind. So not just here, and it's not just now. It's anytime they want to talk about something.
And get some more information. Well, I appreciate it. So, well, thank you again for your time today, Brian. And maybe it'll be next month, maybe it'll be 2 months. We'll see what's going on. But I feel like the interviews are more on the positive upswing than when we first started talking.
Yeah.
Because it was so much unknown.
Yeah, when we started, it was really tough times, and again, things are good. And I think our challenge now, survival was the MO last year, and getting by and keeping things intact and serve the people we needed to serve. And this year it's okay, well, how do we responsibly deal with the benefits that we're getting in a way that enables us to say, no, we're taking care of the taxpayer. We're doing these one shots without having to borrow, buying extra trucks, things like that, and avoiding having that debt, if you will, become a downstream taxpayer burden. So that's the challenge now, and I'd rather have that challenge any day of the week, because it's a lot easier than dealing with trouble.
I was on a networking call, Zooming, and the woman who was hosting it had said, "What's something you learned about yourself through 2020 through COVID?" And my answer and some other people's answers brought me back to one of the first interviews that we had done together, which is creative solutions, right? A lot of people learned how to think outside the box, be a little bit more creative, take other things into consideration, long-term effect and whatnot. So to your point of the money's now coming in, being responsible with it, maybe learning how to budget the money that we didn't know if we would or would not have will help you guys make even a more educated, more long-term plan would be my hope, the hope probably of the public, but it seems like you really are. And the creativeness and the working together probably has to be beneficial. If you guys got nothing else out of 2020 than doing that together.
I agree. And I firmly believe what you said. I mean, we had to do the things that we did. There was no choice in the matter. I think the fact that we creatively did those things, never lose in sight, both, for me personally in county government and in my day-to-day business responsibilities, you can't lose that sight of the beacon, if you will, your path, because if you do, then the decisions go south, and you're living in the moment instead of really thinking big picture and just staying the course to the best of your ability. Got to keep your eye on that beacon. And I was on a networking call recently, and I was surprised. There was 70 plus people on the call. It was a big thing, and peers of mine in the private sector, and I was amazed at how many seem to have lost their path along the way, because they were we all were bailing water, getting by, trying to get things right. And again, I'm talking about the private sector here. And you just got to keep your eye on the prize, whatever you think that should be, as far as what your mission is, and stay there.
Nope, I agree. Which I think we seem to be a little bit like-minded. Maybe that's why I enjoy talking to you so much. Although I know nothing about politics for the most part. So I always appreciate your willingness to explain to me what it means to sponsor, something in those types. Because I got to believe if I don't know, there's somebody else out there that doesn't know as well. So
stay out of the politics. Trust me. It's
I have no interest. None, Brian.
It's good for you. It's a challenge at times. I love the public service, but the politics stuff reminds me every day that we all have a very limited shelf life in trying to give back. Beyond that, whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise.
And hopefully, a lot more good news is coming through the county that you can share with us, whether it's 1 month or 2 months. So
awesome.
Hi.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelley, so much. Great talking to you.